Hey guys, welcome back to Take Three's Take the Throne, where we talk about the most recent episode of Game of Thrones. My child is crying. It's a great day to be alive. John's gonna go take care of her. Yay! Yeah, but we got a lot to talk about because this was maybe not a super long episode of Game of Thrones, but it was a great episode of Game of Thrones, and no one even died. That's pretty weird, actually, pretty honestly. Let's go through the panel. So we got a great panel, same panel as last week. Doesn't mean it's worse than last week. It's still as great. Everyone's still awesome. It's very distracted. All right, let's introduce the panel. This is no big deal, guys. Let's introduce the panel. You know, we got Sandy Robinson. He's here to talk about Game of Thrones, right?
Yeah, I'm not afraid to tell you this. I have been not this. I'm so excited to see the episodes, but I'm even more excited for today. Every time we do this, I get excited as it's coming closer because then I have people to talk about it with, and it's so much fun. So, yeah, I'm totally jacked. I love this episode. It was a lot of people may call it a filler episode, just waiting, but I didn't. I thought it had a lot of really good plot stuff in it, and we're gonna get to all of it. So, yay!
Awesome. Also joining us, I'll try and make their introduction less awkward, but because I'm bringing it up, it just made it the same amount of awkward. It was Robert Parker. He's here. He's going to talk about Game of Thrones.
We're here talking Thrones. Or Game of Thrones is a fun thing. Game of Thrones. The memes are on point this season. That's all I gotta say.
I do not disagree with you. The memes have been spectacular for the last two episodes. Also, my mortal enemy now. It's Cody. Cody, how's it going? How's it going, enemy?
I don't know what to do with my hands. This show happened, and I learned how wildlings become super strong, and I'll explain it when we get to the discussion. So, yeah.
We will talk about that because that was a great scene. We do have, not a lot happened in this episode, but a lot of things that did happen were fantastic, and there was a lot of talking, which is fine. I think to start out, we should definitely just talk about why this episode was in the place that it's in. And for me, I mean, that's basically just to make it so that when 1 million people die in the next episode, it has a lot more emotional impact because we just spent an episode like being all touchy-feely and happy with all these people, and they're going to slowly be picked off in the next couple days. We're going to just watch them slowly be picked off and die. And that's really sad. I'm feeling really sad about that. How's everyone else feeling about the fact that they literally were like, have this offering, this happy offering before all of your favorite people die?
I think it's just pretty much seal some storylines up that needed to be sealed up because some of you guys are not making it out, and that sucks for them. But it also is a perfect conclusion for some of them, because I think one of our main things when we talked about intro to the season, what we wanted, there was a lot of storylines that we didn't think were going to get sewed up because they didn't have the time. And then this episode was pretty much, I watched the inside the episode and I thought it was a really cool thing is how everybody spends their last night. No one knows what tomorrow's going to bring because they've never had to face a battle like what they're going to face. And just the different, and those characters you never see interact in the entire show, chilling together and just waiting. It was such a cool episode. It didn't, people that wanted nonstop battles since the show started, I love that Game of Thrones was you're going to have to hold off because I'm going to do some character stuff, which they've done so well with the entire show. So I love this episode. It's probably up there for one of my favorite episodes, just because of the character building we got.
Yeah, for sure. And you guys feel free to jump in if you want to talk about just the tone of this one. But I definitely agree with you, Cody. It was one of my favorite episodes that we've had recently. And, the thing about Game of Thrones is it's about the characters as much as it is about the shock value and all the killing and battles, which are awesome. And, it wouldn't be Game of Thrones without all those things. But it's about the characters and about how all the houses are interacting with each other. And there were so many like inter-house communications happening here, and kind of like watching, at some times it was like watching like a chess match, right? Like you're watching like people like moving pieces around on a board. It was different dynamics and different people trying to figure out, how they can continue to play the game, while you had a whole other set of people just talking and, trying to make their last day count. Anyone
Yeah.
else want to jump in on this one?
No, I agree with exactly what you said. This is a character-centric episode. I think once we were able to watch like back-to-back this episode and the next one, it's going to be an amazing double feature to sit down and watch both of these, because this one was so much character service. It was so much. I mean, name a character who was at Winterfell. That character had an emotional, character-driven moment in this episode. Every single one got their moment. And in Game of Thrones history, like when you see a character right before a big battle like have a sweet little moment, you're like, oh, that person's gonna die. But when every single character has that moment, that makes you think, okay, what actually is gonna happen next week? Who know? Like, are every single character who had a moment is gonna die? Well, goodbye to 20 characters. Like, is that gonna happen? You don't know. But it's like every scene, it was like, oh, that's your moment. That means you're dead next episode. Oh, wait, that's your moment. That means you're dead next episode. Oh, you are dead next episode too. Okay. And they just went down the list. There was humor. There was heartbreak. I cried at least 3 times. Like, that was genuine emotional tears. And I'll talk about the specific moments later. But, like, this episode was just total and, like, the best character moments in the last 3 seasons combined. If you take the 10 best character moments the last 3 seasons, 8 of them were in this episode. Like, this episode was that good.
Yeah, I completely agree with Robert. And once again, it leads really, it gives you like a great sense of how the season's going to go, because the writers are doing exactly what we want them to do, but not knowing it. They gave everybody their moments. So yeah, we can't sit there and go, okay, well, everybody's dead. Because Robert's right. That would be Winterfell would just get napalmed and everybody would be gone, because everybody had their moment. I will echo Robert's thought. I actually cried a couple of times during this episode, because there was at least 5 really emotional things. And sometimes the ones that were the most emotional were the ones that didn't say much at all. Like, there wasn't much talking involved in it at all. I mean, we're going to get into specifics later, but there were also some really laugh out loud moments in that episode, and I had a lot of fun. I'll talk about this a little bit later, but one of my favorite characters in all of Game of Thrones is back, and it makes me so happy that he's continued off where he was, and it just makes me happy. So yeah, no, this episode was fantastic.
Yeah, let's actually just go right off of what you're talking about here. We can talk about our favorite moments of this episode. I think we should start it off on like the lighter note, because there's a lot of like intrigue in part of the episode, and there's a lot of like, nice cry moments, but there are only a few moments of like, jovial natures. So let's just talk about those real quick. So the one that for me comes to mind is, I think, the same one that's coming to mind for Sandy, and that's definitely with Tormund. Literally, he shows up at Winterfell and basically like tackles Jon out of nowhere, and then he basically is like the dead are coming. Is the big lady here. I mean, he is just such a fun character, and I completely adore the way that they're portraying him. And then the scene, the fireside talk scene, which is one of the best scenes they've ever done in Game of Thrones.
Ever.
It's a moment. That scene, what we're talking about, the latter part, where he literally talks about killing a giant, and suckling on the feet of the woman for 3 months. Like, that's thing. So that is like a classic moment that they do so well. Is when you're around a girl that you really like and you don't know what to say, and he just throws things out, and he like chugs that milk or whatever he's drinking, and then you see Davos just look straight at him like, "What is this guy?"
Yeah.
Like, it was It was the most awkward, brilliant moment I've seen in Game of Thrones in a long time, because they normally have funny moments and they're funny, but this was like awkward to the point of uncomfortable funny, and I couldn't have been happier with this moment.
100%. It was like everyone's worst nightmare saying just the worst possible thing. You're like, I really like this girl. I drink a giant's breast milk for 3 months. Everyone does that. No big deal. Sandy, I know that this is definitely the scene that you wanted to talk about. So
Listen,
go ahead. Go ahead.
He is so funny. He's so serious, and then when there's nothing to be serious about, he is one of the most hilarious characters that we've ever had on Game of Thrones. Every time he mentions Brienne, it makes everything in me smile. It just does. The way if she had walked by and he'd seen her, that look that he gives her, it just makes me laugh and laugh and laugh all the time. I love it, and her uncomfortableness about it is so funny. The fireside chat, I agree, one of the best chats ever up until that point, and then it just goes off the rails, but in a really great way, and you're just looking at the screen going, can you rewind that, because I'm not sure I heard everything that he just said. What? You just sit back and go, holy shit. But no, that whole scene is the whole scene is awesome for me. Him coming back and giving Jon that big bear hug. I think it's really one of the first times we've seen Jon just like let go and be a dude again, like just be like one of the Night's Watch guys, and he sees his, like, hey, we're like the only people left from the group. That's really heart touching to me, to see Jon just, let go of the pressure that's all over him and just be a pal again with a couple of people. So that was what I took away from that: hilarity and heartbreak, or heartfulness.
Yeah, I definitely, for sure. Rob, any thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, just that, like, there's very few moments of levity in the show in general, especially at this point in the season, and to see that we get so many of them intertwined with some like not tragic tier moments, but that we get to see how each character wants to spend their last hours. Like, see every character do it differently is really, really great. The fireside talk scene, that's not a scene that you can show to somebody who's never seen the show before and expect them to get. This episode is an episode for the people who have been here since 2011, since season 1, who have seen every single episode. You can kind of liken it to, like, it's weird like that we're talking about this at this time, but like Infinity War and Endgame, like if you have seen all 20 plus movies, you get every beat that they're going for. If you've seen the last 7 seasons, you have grown with these characters for 7 seasons through so much tragedy in all of their arcs, and you see them finally all unite together. Like, that is what this episode is for. It's to see the payoff of years of arcs from all of these characters all come to a head in this one episode.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that's why I liked this specific scene so much. We can just go ahead and like talk about the whole scene, because it feels weird to not just like open it up to them.
Yeah.
It was such a good scene. But I mean, you had the funny moment with Tormund, and then you had Pod's beautiful song.
Oh my god.
It was so good. And you had them all just talking and being really human, and that's something that Game of Thrones sometimes you miss, those human moments when you start getting these big battles and you start getting into all this movement and political intrigue. You miss the human moments, and that's exactly what this part of this episode was. It was just these people are just trying to live their lives before this battle hits.
It's the entire episode. This entire episode is about the importance of human connection. It's about what humanity is. Like, it's setting up the stakes. It's like, hey, next week we're gonna fuck shit up. Don't you?
Be a lot.
A lot of stuff could happen. Just you wait. But let's set up the stakes. What are these characters fighting for? Are they friends? Are they enemies? Does it matter anymore? Let's remember that, like, human connection and human interaction is the most important thing. Like, understanding humanity and how human beings can interact with one another is the most important thing to this universe, and that's what this entire episode it is. From the fireside stuff to the stuff with Jaime and Brienne to the stuff with Theon and Sansa to the stuff with the Night's Watch people getting back together to the Hound and Beric to Arya and Gendry. Everything. This entire episode is about human connection, and it's just such a great episode. It's such a great calm before the storm. Hey, this is what matters. Keep this in mind when we kill everybody next week.
I think this also episode is something interesting that happened was how the episode started took a total different twist on what we thought was going to happen. Because it started with one of the most tense parts, and we'll talk about that later, but it started super tense, and then it came to like a moment of levity. I'm with Robert 100%. I think this episode was not for the people that just jumped into a Game of Thrones watching party. They don't get it. But to sit around with two House Lannisters, with Davos, with now I totally lost the guy suckling on a teeth.
Tormund.
You
know why they call me Giant
Spain?
Spain?
When they're all sitting there together, that is such a huge moment for the fans, because those, if you go back season 1, those don't work. You go back to season 5, those don't work. And to see that they don't have any more, there's no more loyalty, there's no more house brand, there's no more banner, there's no more anything. It is life versus death. And to sit there calmly, like Tyrion, like, we've all been through battles, right? You have battle, and like mentions his battles and stuff like that. And like we're talking about that scene in general. That scene has one of the most capped moments that needed to happen with the knighting of Brienne.
Mm-hmm.
Because as he is uttering those words, as Jaime is uttering the oaths of it, having broken everything on those commands, on those things he's laying down, Brienne hasn't. Brienne is the one true knight that deserves that claim more than anything, but by social standards, she doesn't get that because of who she is, or of her gender. Just to see that moment of a like Jaime saying, you can have this because I've had this and I shouldn't have this, so let me give you what you actually deserve. And it honest, just pure emotions, especially Podrick's song, like that. Just it's just a calm before the storm, and next episode's going to be insane. But I needed this episode before that, because if it would have just went right into it, I don't think it would have paid off. I just don't.
Yeah, with Brienne's knighting, like Tormund literally says, "Fuck tradition." Like,
exactly.
We are what matters now. The look on Brienne's face, her smile when she stands up, that's one of the moments I cried this episode.
Absolutely. 100%. 100%.
Like, water, I'm like, oh my God. Like, you saw her eyes well up, and Tormund stands up and he's clapping like a madman.
They all stood up. Like, seriously.
Tyrion just goes, Sir Brienne of Tarth. And I'm like, Tyrion, oh my God, I'm going to cry. Like, and when he's like, Tyrion's filling up Podrick's cup all the way and he gives him a little wink. Like, I love that moment. And Podrick's song, I'm going to just say it now real quick. That reminds me so much of Pippin's song, The Edge of Night from Return of the King. I think it's an amazing parallel. There's a little bit different situations in what the characters are going through, but the 2-minute sequence of Podrick starting to sing and then it going into focusing on every single character that's at Winterfell is in my top like 2 or 3 favorite Game of Thrones 2 minutes ever. You see what every single character wants. Theon and Sansa, they just want to be with somebody who's had an arc as tragic as them, who want to connect with each other. Arya and Gendry, we see the experiences that they want to have together. Missandei and Grey Worm want to hold each other one more time. We see the people in the fire room. Like, we literally get to focus on every single character. The song is beautiful. That voice, oh my God, is amazing.
Better than Ed Sheeran's cameo. 100.
Back off, Ed Sheeran.
Never.
We see Sam want to just hold his family one more time. We see Jorah staring out into the darkness. Like, that 2 minutes is a perfect encapsulation of what Game of Thrones is about. It's about each character having a tragic arc and having a lot of shit that happened to them, but them all understanding what they need in these final moments. And that scene, that sequence, that song, I've watched it about 5 or 6 times, and I literally am brought to tears every time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you completely. I think that it's such a, for me, it's a flawless scene. The whole start of them talking to the end with that singing part and her getting knighted, like it is just a flawless scene. And I mean, when she does get knighted, like that to me was so, like that was one of the best things that the show has ever done, in my opinion, because she is like, she's the only truly honorable person who is displaying those traits, you know, outside of a few people, but who are lords, right? Like she's the only person who is in that position who has been that honorable. And the fact that they just went and did it, I'm like, oh, she's gonna die now, and I'm not okay with this. I'm just not okay with this.
And Jamie is serving under her. And like,
I'm just not okay with them dying anymore. I after episode 1, I was like, these people are gonna die. It's okay. It's just a thing. After this episode, I'm like, don't kill them. I just can't handle it.
But I think that was what was
so
best
good.
with the writing is as I don't think we know anymore who's going to get killed because they gave so many of those emotional moments to everybody.
There's a few.
There's a few. There's a few.
Grey Worm and Missandei are sitting there making post-war plans, like, we're both gonna survive.
Probably gonna bite the dust. He does fight on the front lines. So,
but you know what? I'm gonna give give Theon a bit of a pass because Theon's no, not for killing him because he deserves to die 1,000 deaths in horrible ways. But his story in this particular episode was very moving, and the way Sansa reacted to it, like she could have, but no. Like she just went right in and hugged him and was like, this is the person who saved my life. And all things were forgotten, which kind of annoyed me because, you know, like Sansa holds grudges about other things. And like everybody seems to hold other grudges that are similar to everybody else's grudges, but they hold them responsible for their grudges and not their own. And this was one of those moments that I liked so much. I also really loved the Sam moment when everybody's asking him, Sam, you want to go down to the crypt? And you know, he's like, does everybody forget that I was the one that first killed a White Walker? Like, screw you guys.
Lord Commander, shoot, what's his name? Ed? No, Dolores Ed. Yeah, his response to that was one of my favorite lines of the whole episode. He says, "Samwell Tarly, Slayer of White Walkers, lover of women, the end of times."
End of times. That's great.
Yeah, the Sam stuff I thought was great. Especially, I think we're just jumping around, and that's fine because this episode did that on its own, and it was perfect the way it was. Sam giving Heartsbane, giving that to Jorah, I think was a great moment. Him saying, "It was your father who taught me to be a man. You know, this is how I want to repay that debt." That was also just so good. I think that these last 2 episodes and some from previous seasons really just keep showing that he is like the heart and soul of the show. Like the show has so many characters who have these great moments, right? Like Brienne has this great moment and Tyrion has great moments all the time, but he is like the bleeding heart of this series, right? Like he cares about people. He cares about doing what's right at, all times. And I just really enjoyed his character in this episode. I think there was some great moments from him in an episode full of really amazing character moments. Yeah, Cody, I know you got stuff to say.
Yeah.
About maybe stuff that was mentioned. I don't know.
No.
Okay.
Well, there's a funny, we're talking funny scenes. By far, I think the funniest besides the Tormund stuff was the Hound and Arya.
Arya and Beric.
And he sits there and he comes. I spit water with that. I think the Hound just gets me more than anybody else because he's kind of like my personality. I'm very abrasive at times, and he literally sits and goes, "That guy's not around anymore. You're not gonna fucking give us a sermon, are you? He's not gonna bring you back when I throw you off this damn wall."
Yeah. No, you're Lord of Light. He's gonna be real confused when I throw you
off this wall. And then Arya gets up where are you going? I'm not gonna die with you, miserable old bastards. And like walks away. And this is my last night with you, old bastards, and walks away. I was in tears with because the Hound just looked straight at him because you're not gonna give us a sermon, are you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that
It's just-
was great. I loved that as well.
It's so good.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Oh.
You know, there weren't too many funny moments, and that's kind of the thing that is interesting with this episode, because normally you get a little bit more of it. You know, you had a little bit of banter between Jaime and Tyrion, which I really, really enjoyed them finally being able to talk to each other. I want to make sure we talk about Jaime's trial, because a lot came up in his, if you want to call it a trial. But some interesting things came up in there that we can discuss a little bit with how, you know, with his trial and then with Theon returning, you see the favor kind of start to shift here, because, you know, Jaime's trial, it basically hinges on what the Starks say. Theon returning, he doesn't return for Dany, he returns for Sansa. You start seeing Dany piecing this together. People are loyal to the Starks. They are, you know, listening to the Starks. They could be a huge threat to the only thing she cares about. You know, she says she cares about Jon and cares about this war. But then when Sansa kind of needles her a little bit, you see that big turn where she's like,
She's defensive. Yeah.
She very much does. She very much does.
Daenerys doesn't see this as her fight. When she's talking to Sansa, she literally says, "Oh, we have so much in common. I'm here fighting Jon's war. It's not the war for the living. It's not the war for the Dawn. It's not the war for humans. It's Jon's war. And when Jon's war is over, I expect to still be in charge, because that is my goal, since I was born and raised with that goal, and I will never let it go." And she gets defensive to Sansa, and when Jon tells her at the end of the episode, she immediately gets defensive again. She says, "Who told you? Who told you? You're going to take my throne? Excuse me, what?"
Yeah.
Like, she is a character. Daenerys is a character who is not letting go of power easily.
No. Not
that emotion too. There's literally a scene where no words are spoken. It is literally a hand gesture. Her hands are on Sansa's thing, and he goes off. Sure, response is, "What about the North? We promise that we will never bend our knee to anybody ever again." And just a simple pull off, like, okay, we're not on the same page anymore, because this is not what it is. But I think that's what I said when we're talking about Jaime's trial. That's the thing about this episode. It started super tense, and there was a moment that I was wrong about last week that we were pretty much all wrong about. That Bran is one with the sickest burns in the show, because he says the things we do for love in that face. But then just the simple factor, like, back to where the knighting pretty much happened. The reason why Jaime gets off for the reason he is because of how trustworthy Brienne is. Brienne literally puts it. Tyrion's words mean nothing.
No.
Tyrion's words meant an absolute nothing. Be like, "Oh, you listened," maybe because his little brother was going to vouch for him, and like those simple lines. But when Brienne steps up and says, "Listen, I served with him. He saved me. He's the reason he doesn't even have a hand anymore." And Sansa goes, "You trust him? I trust him. We're good."
No, that's a that's a good point, because it brings us to another part that we haven't brought up yet, was the forgiveness of Daenerys to Tyrion.
With Jorah's advice.
So had Jorah gone to Daenerys before that and said what he said to her then, and rekindled her fondness and, you know, love for Tyrion, and then what would have happened if then the trial would have happened? Would Daenerys have been more accepting towards listening to Tyrion and taking his trust on that one? But we know that she didn't. And, you know, whatever's going to happen with Daenerys, I don't know at this point. I was hoping that she would be a bit more adult about the whole situation. But it really does seem that she is 100% completely and utterly focused on the Iron Throne and everything else.
She's still trying.
We can't expect her to have a sense of anything because for the years leading up, this is all she's known. And everybody that stood in her path has been cut down or mowed down in her way. So we can't expect her now because she falls in love with somebody. She's fallen in love before, and that's always been.
I'm waiting for somebody to look at her and say, okay, Cersei, what would you like us to do next?
No, I think I get what you're saying, Cody. It's at this point, I don't think that this is something that we're making the point like, well, she loves John, so she should, take his side on things. I think at this point, she is being so defensive, and her focus is still on one thing, even
and
though
I don't blame
the entirety of everyone else up there, their focus is on surviving.
Nope.
Like, they don't want to let the dead be able to take over everything.
She's still playing the Game of Thrones.
Yeah, her and Sansa are the only ones still playing the game.
Cersei.
Everybody
else, at
we
Winterfell.
haven't seen her this episode.
At Winterfell.
Everybody else has this is it. This is his pit stop for her. And everybody's like, oh, Dany's super rude or Dany's super defensive. I'm not surprised by this in the least. I don't blame her at this point.
She's been this way.
She's went city to city, conquering as she's went, and now she gets to the one spot right before the final destination, and now she's met with the most adversity, and everybody's expecting her to just bend and be okay. She has 2 fully grown dragons, and she's not backing down by any means necessary. And I don't believe she's Cersei, because at the end of the day, until we talk about it, she's rightful heir. She knows she's rightful heir. Cersei is not rightful heir. She took it by force. But in her eyes and what she's been told, she's the rightful heir to the throne.
Sure.
So by Cersei's account, Cersei's forced her way to the throne. She has the throne by force alone.
Yeah.
So I don't blame her for not being, okay, I can give it to you now.
I mean, sure.
Yeah, but why would she care? Why would she care? She's obviously in love with John, and this news comes.
She's more in love with the throne than she is with John.
That's why I compare her to Cersei, because Cersei could have sent all of her armies to help fight the dead, and instead she's sitting in her throne.
Cersei's thing was predetermined beforehand.
That's true. I also think the last 2 scenes of Daenerys' arc have been trying to balance cruelty with compassion. Like, all last season, that was the entire thing of why she needed Tyrion. Because it was like, and Jorah and Varys, like, she is not equipped enough to do this on her own.
No, but that was all before the Army of the Dead. That was before she knew what she was facing. So just like with Cersei, who didn't know before, she then knew before, and she just sat back and said, yeah, let everybody else kill themselves.
But I don't believe she thinks she's losing this war. I think she does not.
She's planning for the long game. Yeah.
And I absolutely agree with that,
which is perfectly acceptable, right? I don't think that we're saying that that's unacceptable. I think that the only thing that's really bothering me with the way she's playing this is she is playing the game still. Like she's not focusing on what is right in front of her. And that's very dangerous when this in all respects could be the last thing she does. You have to look at the big picture, but you also have to see what is immediately in your path in order to get to the big picture, and she's not focusing on it at all. And that's going to be really dangerous for her, especially with all of these little pieces kind of moving around where she's seeing people being more trusting of the Starks than her. And after, what we're going to talk about at the end with John, there's a lot of things happening right now that are going to start making her question who's around her and who do they trust and who are they going to side with if something does happen. And it could quite possibly happen. So I just think that there's a lot going on in her character right now. And I'm not sure how it's going to pan out. I really don't. I have no idea at this point because I thought I had it kind of figured out. But the way that she's acting and the way that she's trying to work through this situation, I think, is not what I expected at this time. Yeah. And it's definitely changed my perception of what I think her story is going to be in the next 4 episodes.
Yeah, it's hard to call her the protagonist of the show still.
Yes.
Like it really is. And that I think the writers and the showrunners are doing an incredible job of keeping us guessing and keeping us on the fence about exactly how her arc is going to end up. I think they're doing a really, really good job of that.
She is still showing restraint, though, more than she did in past
Absolutely.
seasons.
Yeah.
100%.
That's
Does
because
she get
Jorah is
angry?
whispering
Yes.
in her ear, being like, "Oh, be
Mhm.
nice. You
True.
need these people."
But for example, right when dang it. Okay, but they leave for the thing and nothing happens. They don't scream at each other. They don't walk. They just walk off, and they're like, "Okay, the moment's here, and we'll solve this afterwards." Like that's something she wouldn't have done. She would have still thrown a hissy fit in the crypts.
Yeah, I mean, I think she knows that there's a time and place for this, and she is leaving it for the moment to focus on the bigger issue, but she is not forgetting anything that has happened. She is not even going to like forget a single thing that's happened. She's going to remember exactly what Sansa's doing. She's going to remember exactly, Tyrion, how she doubted him. She's going to remember all the stuff with Jon. It's going to be at the back of her mind this entire battle.
Which, like, that raises the question, like, we talked a little bit about the, war room scene, like, the plan with Bran to try to lure the Night King out like a piece of meat, like, is it gonna work? Like, are her dragons gonna be distracted? Is she gonna be distracted in this battle? Like, thinking too much of what's next instead of, like, trying to kill the Night King. We don't even know if Dragonfire is gonna work. Let's find out next episode, but, like, I think her mind is going to be a lot of different places, and I think it's going to show in the battle. I think there's going to be at least one moment next episode where we're going to see that indecisiveness, and it's going to cost.
And if it does ruin something with the Starks, this is going to be a big factor of them not trusting moving forward or trusting her more moving forward. It's just that's the determinant. If anything happens bad to Bran, I think something's going to be called into question for her. Because once the Night King is solved, if the Night King gets solved, when we think it is, then the overall game is going to be the next step up. And who takes what. And if she doesn't have the backing of the North and she doesn't get Jon's backing back or they don't come up with an agreement, then we're in trouble. That's what my viewpoint is on that.
Yeah, from our first prediction episode, I said the first 3 episodes of the season are going to be in the North, beat the Night King. Second 3 episodes are going to be, all right, shift focus. Let's take care of Cersei now. And I think that format is still going to hold. That structure is still going to be what's going to happen. But I do think that there is going to be some cost with, specifically with Daenerys. I think there's going to be, like, a specific moment where, like, she is indecisive about, like, maybe saving Jon, or, like, doing something, and somebody that is close to her is going to die. Whether it's Jorah or Grey Worm, or, like, she's going to cause somebody to die.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that this episode in particular has set up a different path that I hadn't really considered in terms of what her story is going to be. I do want to talk about this real quick, just because it was a huge controversy with the episode. Which, like, come on, guys. And I made the joke. I think other people made the joke that, Arya and Gendry getting together happened, and then the Google searches for how old she is went like,
she's 21.
She's perfectly fine. She's very legal.
The actress is 21. Yeah.
I get why people were like, "Oh, she's too young." Like, they grew up with her character, basically. She started when she was 11 years old. For God's sakes.
Yeah, but at this point, the character is like 17 or 18.
She's 18 years old. They tweeted it out before the episode even happened. Game of Thrones tweeted it out before the episode happened. Jonathan.
She's 22 years old in real life.
Yeah, I know. We're talking about her character.
If we can just be adults for a second, everybody in the world. Good Lord.
I completely agree with you. But, Arya and Gendry, this is something that I've kind of seen coming since, they met, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, they're probably going to be a couple by the end of this, because it's the Baratheon Stark line that
I have a
promised
son,
basically
you have a daughter.
We'll join
our houses.
Exactly.
Let's go drink some wine.
It was the promised, line moving forward at the beginning of the show, and I was like, it's probably going to happen. And I'm not mad at it. I think that he is good for Arya. He reminds her that she is still a human. He reminds her that she still has a heart and can still feel using it, right? And she kind of brings out a different side in him as well. And I think that it's a pretty interesting couple. Whether or not they do stay together afterwards, if they're both still alive, that's a different question. But I did enjoy the scenes. I thought it was interesting watching, her basically take charge of the entire scene.
Yeah, which is something that has practically never happened in Game of Thrones before. It's kind of important to see that.
Not the Red Woman, take your own pants off.
I love that line. That line was fantastic.
That was like a stand-up clap kind of line for me. Just this scene, I thought was great, and I didn't even think about it being controversial until everyone on Twitter.
Until I went on Twitter. Yeah. So the interesting thing about like Arya's arc in general is she starts out the series being like a tomboy, yes, but also super. She's one of those people who like commits her heart to everybody that she meets. In season 1, you look at her stuff with Syrio Forel, with Jory Castle, with her father. She sees all 3 of those people as role models, and she sees all 3 of them die. For being good people. Like, that's intense. Her entire arc is one of tragedy. Her entire arc, especially once she meets Jaqen H'ghar, like when she meets up with the Brotherhood, when she meets Gendry in season 2, that is one of the last like characters that she meets that she like has any kind of kinship with. That she has any kind of friendship with, that she sees as like having a real genuine human interaction. She has a crush on him, sure, but like she like sees him as a real person and really connects with them. The next 4 or 5 seasons, she goes off to Bravos, becomes an assassin, purges herself of all emotion, becomes no one, comes back, starts murdering people for fun, like murders entire families. Like she has lost. She's lost sight of what it means to connect with somebody on any kind of emotional level. And so when she comes back and she sees this guy that she had a crush on, 6 years ago, like that's a big thing for her. Like this scene, not only is it her like wanting to have this experience, but it really is symbolic of her craving and her desire for that human interaction. And I think that's so important that her arc is coming back to this, because when she says, I'm Arya Stark Winterfell, she's getting her identity back, and now she's getting her emotional identity back too. And I think that's super important for her character.
Well, and I think that the other thing about that is that she had a crush on him, but she also this entire time has pretty much thought he's been dead.
Yeah.
She didn't think he was alive at all. So this is number one. She's seeing him again, and she's just like, he's alive. That's pretty cool. The other thing is this really cool parallel between her and Sansa's storylines, where the beginning of the show is Sansa being betrothed to Baratheon. She's the one who is, going to be married and, be in this joining of houses, and then it shifts
and now she rode the stag.
And now Arya is the one kind of in that position, and it's just an interesting change of dynamic in terms of, Sansa's the one on the night before the battle, just broing out with her buddy Tyrion, and Arya is the one being the romantic lead of the episode. Yeah. And that's, to me, just such an interesting dynamic shift between her character and Sansa's character. And I think when you see them together and contrast them, you actually really get a great picture of how their characters have changed. Because at the beginning of the show, there is no way that Sansa wouldn't have been some romantic little girl trying to, have her last moments with her true love, right? And Arya would be like, I don't want to marry someone. Marriage is for dopes. I just want to go stab people. And now you're seeing the complete opposite. And it's such a great way to show the character growth. What about you, Sandy? Anything you wanted to talk about with this scene here?
Well, let's just pull the cat out of the bag right away. Listen, he's a blacksmith. From when we last saw him to when we see him now, he got all swole. He's he's like big, man.
Well, in season 2.
He's bigger now. You can see the pecs underneath him, and Arya just went up to him and just said, "I'm a little tiny little waif," boof, and pushed him down. And he's just like, "All right, okay, I'll just."
She's like, "I've been blind. Get out of here."
That's right, exactly. And so I mean, Cody's gone out there, but yeah, I you know what? I think Robert was exactly right. I think that Arya's arc has been one of the most unbelievably sad throughout the whole thing. She starts by not wanting to go to King's Landing. She sees her dad's head cut off. Then she's on her own. Then she's with the Hound. Then it's so dark. And for her to be coming back to her humanity, but keeping the skills that she's learned over this time, is really great. I'm very interested to see what, like the really strong women that we see, like Daenerys and Sansa, and I'm really excited to see and interested to see what they do when they actually see all of the enemies coming. Do they just go back and say, "Holy crap, we were wrong. Screw this. Everybody fight. Nothing else matters," or are they still going to play the Game of Thrones? That's my whole thing, is when does this Game of Thrones thought leave their minds and survival is all that anybody thinks about? Because I agree with Robert. I think that we're going to get next episode and the next episode and the next episode are going to be, well, maybe not the third, the next 2 episodes for sure are just going to be battle-licious. It's just going to be battling all over the place. And then we're going to go back to these Game of Thrones, when they have to go to King's Landing. So I'm interested to see how they react to what they haven't seen yet. And then how they react afterwards, because once you change and you are all about survival, it's really tough to get back into political mode. It's really tough to get back into, oh crap, okay, we just spent 3 days, 4 days, however long the actual battle goes on, fighting for our ever-loving lives. Do we now just, let's go, we got to go take the Iron Throne? It's going to be interesting for me to see that, but I told you guys this last time. Arya is the most dangerous person in the Game of Thrones, the most dangerous. But I do want to mention one thing, and I haven't mentioned it yet, and I'm looking forward to this because I completely forgot. What if the Hound survives? And
No, he should.
and what if he marches to King's Landing?
For
He
sure.
should.
Oh,
We have to get
Clegane
Clegane
Bowl.
Bowl.
It's
It has to happen.
It's
Okay,
happening.
good.
It
I'm
has-
glad you
it-
guys are.
it
I'm
has
glad
to
you guys
happen.
are. I'm
If
glad you
it
guys are on board
doesn't-
for that.
If it doesn't happen, literally
That's
like
a
99%
Such a
of the
missed
fans
opportunity.
are going to riot, throw papers in the air, right?
Because I want that purple Franken monster,
Oh, it's going down.
Franken Mountain to go down.
I
Yeah.
think bringing him back and doing everything that he's already went through. There's certain characters that I feel like in the show that have been through too much to go now, and to go on weak things. Like, I don't think the Battle of the Dead takes out certain people. I just don't believe that. I may
Fair.
be wrong, and I'm fair to be wrong. But
We'll talk about it a week from now.
Yeah. Next week when we're all sitting here crying to each other.
But my whole viewpoint is, like, there's certain ones like Tyrion and Sansa. Those are 2 that come to mind, that they have been through so much in the Game of Thrones that they don't go by the army of the dead. That makes no sense. That I think that's bad writing. I think that would just be, and both of them would be in circumstances that would be almost out of the blue deaths. Like, it wouldn't make sense. They wouldn't
Unless he raises the dead in the crypt, which is a current theory.
that is a current theory.
They said the word crypt about 18 times this episode. The crypt is
Million
there.
crypt.
So that's another thing with the Hound. I believe the Hound, they've mentioned the brother so many times to him. He's getting past the army of the dead. But the thing interesting with Arya has always been one of the badass people, and especially she hasn't faced much resistance near season 7, and now on here, she intimidates people when she shows up. I think there's a real close one that she's going to be overwhelmed next episode.
Oh, yeah.
And somebody
She's an
that
assassin, not a soldier.
somebody that she doesn't like per se, I think saves her out of those situations. Like, say the Hound, or say somebody that's like, listen, like, you can do it all yourself, but calm down. So I think that may happen. But yeah, I think there are some. I guess we can almost get to that point at some point. There are some after this episode are not making it. There's
Oh, for
clear
sure.
as day.
Oh, for
They
sure.
have cut. They have cut some. They have finished them all
Theon.
perfectly.
Grey Worm.
I'm here
Sorry,
to
terrible
defend.
fault,
I'm
terrible
here to
fault.
defend Winterfell. Yeah, you're gonna die at Winterfell. Oh,
I'll
we talked-
protect Bran.
We talked about the opening. We talked about the opening last week, and I thought it was very cool that they added the trenches.
Oh, the tiles
Oh,
and,
yeah,
and the tiles
Yeah.
slipping over.
Yeah, I thought that was very cool.
Mhm.
Because they're changing it each week for something that's changed. So they have the trenches around it, and like I thought that was a really neat add. But
Mhm.
I'll let you have
Absolutely. I just want to make sure we have a chance to talk about anything else that we're missing. For me, there's only a couple things that I wanted to make sure we talked about, and that was like the two moments that I just found really satisfying. With the ones with Lyanna talking to Jorah, I really enjoyed that because I wanted that to happen, and we didn't get it in last episode, and it didn't seem like we were going to get it in this one, and it was hardly a scene, but it was important, and it did show Lyanna like, I'm fighting, like, this is my house, I am fighting.
Yep,
You
take
don't,
off,
you
Hoser.
know.
Mhm.
And then at the end, she, it was. That's about as touching as her character can get. But the other one was Davos giving out the soup to people, and that little girl.
Yep.
Mhm.
I will protect them in the crypts. I was like, that's really sweet.
Crypts.
Like,
This-
oh, crypts.
So that scene, I said there was a couple times this episode that made me cry. I was
That
a
was one of them for
I was
sure.
a baby. When that little girl came up, that entire scene, I'm getting goosebumps right now thinking about it. You didn't even need to say the word Shireen.
Mm-hmm.
You need to say
Uh-huh.
the look of the girl, the
Uh-huh.
voice. They played, if you listen closely, they played the music of that during Shireen, like the song that Shireen used to say, that used to sing to Davos, the one she used to sing to him. They play the music of that scene.
Yep.
In there, the Scarface, the bravery, like
Mhm.
intrigue. Davos, when like he was like turned around and he hears the voice and he turns around, the look in Liam Cunningham's eyes is one of the best acting moments of the entire show.
Mhm.
I don't care if that's recency bias. The entire show, the look in his eyes, I saw, and it was like a brief glimmer of hope that Shireen was standing there, and it was
Mhm.
this girl, and you see his lip just quiver, and I was a wreck.
Yeah, that was a huge moment for me too. I was like,
The homage that they were trying to pay, and they
mhm.
need to say the name Shireen. Gilly comes up and like tries to convince her to defend the crypts, and Davos, when he heard that she wanted to fight, he's like, "No, I can't go through this again."
Nope.
No.
Yeah.
I literally am tearing up right now thinking that
Yeah.
scene
It
was my favorite and most heartbreaking scene of the entire episode.
Yeah, and I definitely wanted to make sure we talked about it because I thought that it was very emotional, and I don't think that a lot of people connected to that scene as much as definitely you did, Robert, but myself. And I literally don't understand why they didn't, because his entire character is basically so wrapped up with Shireen until she dies, and this little girl comes up, and it is so much like a callback to that and their relationship, and you could see it. Liam Cunningham is just so good in this role. I want to make sure if there's anything else anyone wants to bring up before we talk about the Jon and Dany stuff. I want to make sure we all get a chance for that. Is there anything, Sandy, that you wanted to bring up before we hit that big part of the episode?
I think you hit on it relatively earlier in the conversation, but I really think it's worth mentioning again. The Sam handing off the sword to Jorah is probably one of my favorite scenes in all of Game of Thrones. He was so broken at the end of the last episode, and for him to be able to do that after hearing that and to give the reasons why. Wow, for me, it was one of the most powerful moments that I've ever witnessed on Game of Thrones. It was just, you know what? It's too big for me to carry, and I can't use it. So, but beyond that, your dad turned me into a man, and for that, this is all I have to give to you. Please use it. It's Valyrian steel, so it wasn't like it was an inexpensive gift. So I thought that was a really, really powerful scene too. And Rob's right. I was blubbering during that entire scene with the little girl, and yeah, it was just nuts. But yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Obviously, I brought that scene up a little bit earlier as a talking point, but it was a great scene between Sam and Jorah for sure. Cody, is there anything else in the episode before we get to John and Danny that you wanted to bring up here?
I think it was very cool, the Jamie and Bran stuff.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Where he's pretty much, why didn't you say anything? Because we need people. Like, basically, he's like, I don't care. Like, I'm still alive, and that's not who I am anymore. I also thought the really cool thing was the kind of the battle plan that that was kind of neat to see all those people in the same room discussing, like, hey, this is a strategy that we need to kind of figure out. If we do this, maybe this will happen. And of course, they spoke it into existence. So in Game of Thrones talk, that means it's not going to go according to plan. So that's awesome. So sorry, Bran, you're going to be a lunch snack, but I hope that you make it out because it's not going to go to plan.
Theon as Bran's personal guard is one of the most laughable moments in the show.
It's basically just,
and I was just like, is
yeah,
there a dragon available? Is there somebody?
Bran can't be there alone. Theon. Well, I gotta die next episode anyway.
I mean, I'm gonna die anyway. I might as well do it honorably.
The Night King shows up and he's like, I am Reek. I am Reek.
I am Theon Greyjoy of the Iron Ice Dragon. Just
I am Reek. I am Reek.
Yeah, I'm telling you, like I told you guys last time, this whole season is about redemption. And I think that while Theon is going to die, he's going to die, but he's going to die saving Bran or giving Bran enough time to do what he needs to do. And then he's going to be toast, or as Cody likes to say, a small lunch snack. You know,
stand him. I hope he goes out in a brutal way.
He's going to go out in a brutal way, but he's going to do.
He was very good in this episode. I will give him that. I really did enjoy his character in this episode. It does not make up for every other episode in this entire show.
I watched it with people, and then everybody was just like, "Yeah," I was like, "Shut up! Shut up! Why?"
All right, let's give Rob a chance. Anything else you wanted to bring up before we hit this last point here?
Nope, you got it. I think we should just move into the Danny and John stuff.
That's their couple name, Danny.
Oh.
Danny?
Yeah.
Dan?
Did something happen with those two?
Janny.
No, nothing happened with them. We can just end the show.
Yeah.
No, we've hinted at it enough, but John is standing in front of Lyanna. It sparks the conversation that I think we all wanted to reach in the TV and just slap the back of his head. Like, why? And seriously, just real bad timing, because as soon as they have the conversation where, you know, this is my mother and she was married to your brother and I'm, you know, their biological son, and then the dead arrive. So what bad timing, John? Just the worst. Seriously, bad.
He's terrible
timing.
at it. He is terrible at it.
So
I
terrible.
mean, he's like probably my favorite character in the show, and man, that's bad time. You're too honorable for your own good. I can't handle you. I cannot handle your business.
Same thing as Ned Stark. That's not your father anymore. You have the worst timing, or you're noble to a cause, a fault, and look at you.
Seriously. So let's go around the board, talk about the scene, talk about how we think it's going to impact the next episode, if we think it's going to do it at all. We'll start out, Sandy.
Okay. Rob brought this up earlier, and I'm going to repeat it. I contribute Jon Snow doing what he did to Star-Lord doing what Star-Lord did. Could you just wait until the battle was over and just see who's living? You know what? You might not have had to say anything. She could have died. And you just could have gone, hey, guess what? I'm a Targaryen, dudes. You know, it's written in the scrolls. I'm up there. You just didn't. Why would you want to unfocus somebody? You're right about wanting to reach. I was literally sitting there, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't. No. Through the whole thing. And I was just like, But I guess what was more shocking to me personally was Daenerys's response, which wasn't like, holy crap, you know what? That makes an awful lot of flipping sense now. It was, You're trying to take my throne away. Where's my dragons? Come on, dragons. And so as much as you guys have graciously explained the great Game of Thrones to me, I wanted her to be a little bit more, we'll deal with this afterwards. It's not like I don't believe you, because I do. I trust you, but let's talk about this afterwards and we can deal with that after the debt is done. And that didn't happen. Jon was stupid for saying anything to begin with. The first 10 minutes of next episode is going to be really interesting to watch.
100%. And yeah, just why couldn't you have just waited? The Star-Lord talking point. That's perfect. What about you, Cody?
No. Well, Sandy, I 100% disagree with you. Because, sorry, it's pretty much just saying, hey, your entire life, this is what you've believed to be true. In 4 seconds after I tell you, I hope you're okay with it. Hell no, you're not going to be okay with it. You're going to be pissed off, and you're going to be quite mad, because the woman has ruled with rage from the start point. So I can't look at her and be like, hey, I'm actually the son. I'm Aegon Targaryen, and I'm actually the rightful heir. I don't, and cool, sweet. So I've been doing this for a while. Can we rule together? Because that would be pretty sweet, because I've been actually working really hard for that. So that's my viewpoint. The
Okay,
problem
hold on. I have to respond to that. Dany hasn't been in charge from the beginning. She was just the sister of the real person who was supposed to be in charge, and only
by
in
season 1, episode 7. By episode 7, she was chasing the throne on her own.
She has run the entire thing. He was never in charge.
Yeah.
He claimed to be.
He was in charge and had her by an absolute leash.
That's besides the point. No, absolutely not. That is
Go back and
That is
watch.
a complete false statement. Episode 7, he is out of the picture, and she is completely on the mission path of where she's going to be. The only thing that I have to say is, yes, he picks the worst timing ever. He's an idiot. He doesn't like. Could you make it even any more obvious? Like, I haven't seen my girlfriend in a while, but I'm gonna stand and hopefully wait for her right by my mother's thing to make her bring it up. So then I say, oh yeah, hey, by the way, I'm actually the rightful heir. I may be the only person in the world that sees this, but Dany handled it the exact way that I think she should have handled it. I don't think she should have handled it calmly. That's not her character. If she would have been chill with it, I would have been like, you're an idiot. She doesn't see that there's a bigger picture, and she's never seen the bigger picture. That's why she has Varys. That's why she has Tyrion. That's why she has Joran. Those are the people that keep her sane. She sees one thing, and it is a giant throne that she wants to sit upon. And anything that comes in the way, she doesn't see it. That's why she says it's Jon's war. That's why she says look who swayed who. Look whose war I'm fighting. She doesn't see anything because that's not her character. And if it would have made perfect sense. No, he says the one phrase. She, one, doesn't believe him, which she shouldn't, because it's Game of Thrones and no one has ever told the truth, hardly at all in the show. And 2, she said, oh, your best friend and your brother told you that? Congratulations. So that means you have an heir to the throne. She doesn't care that there's White Walkers outside. She literally, in her still thing, she has 2 full-grown dragons, and she's the only one that's technically safe from them in her eyes. So with that being said, she handled the right way. Jon's a flippin' moron, like I knew he would be. I just thought it was going to be at a different point in time, not before the Battle of Winterfell. I thought it was the Battle of King's Landing. So he's a moron for that. And now it could set up literally a 3-person battle leading up to it. It could be the North and Jon Snow. It could be the Unsullied and flippin'. It's going to be an awkward leaving of the castle if whoever's alive, because first one to King's Landing wins. And like... they both have dragons because one actually likes Jon. So it's going to be a weird part of the season. I just think Jon's a moron, and Daenerys should have just torched his ass.
It wasn't his smartest moment. Rob, I want to hear your thoughts on this as well.
Yeah, I mean, they pretty much hit all of it. I think Jon shouldn't have said anything until after the battle. Daenerys responded as her character has been set up to respond the last 2 episodes. Stingy, power hungry, protective, defensive. And I'm interested to see the path that her character takes for the next few episodes.
Yeah, I'm with everyone. I don't think that she responded out of character. I very much expected her to respond this way. The only thing that I think is going to be a surprise is, they drive certain things home. We talked about the Crips already this episode, how they drove that home pretty well. But at the end of last season, they drove home that whole pregnant thing. They drove that right through the ground. So she's probably
You're not
pregnant.
wrong.
She's probably pregnant right now. And how is she going to, once she finds out, I feel like that's going to have some sort of role to play in whether or not she moves past what she's learned. I think that's going to have a huge part.
That will definitely change her if that's the
Yeah.
case. Because they also brought up the Cersei pregnancy this episode too. But like, is
Yeah.
it real? And I think that's just more of a hint back that she's not really pregnant,
But Danny is.
But Danny is.
Definitely
and
is.
that changes because then she will stop thinking about herself and start thinking about, because she believes that she's not allowed. She's not unable to have kids, and then that will make it more clear that either she's not going to make it or that the two will rule the kingdom together.
Yeah, and
that just makes it clear.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, once she finds that and she has a tie to him, I think it'll maybe make things a little bit harder for her to just walk away. But yeah, so this next episode, real quick before we end, are there any changes on who you think is going to die? And has anyone's theories changed on who they think is going to kill the Night Walk? The Night King. That's all I really care about in this next episode. Let's start it out with Rob. Any changes in your theories here?
None of my death theories have changed at all, like who's gonna die. As far as who's gonna kill the Night King, it's a little bit up in the air. My crazy weird theory was Jorah. Maybe still up, maybe still there. It's still a possibility.
Maybe
I mean, he's fighting.
He has Heartsbane.
Yeah, he's got Heartsbane, he's got Valyrian Steel, but he's also fighting outside of the castle, and they're trying to lure the Night King into the Godswood, which is inside the castle. So, don't really know. I think it'd be cool if Bran had like a psychic battle with the Night King, kind of like the end of X-Men Apocalypse. Like, not to reference specifically that, but like, where there's like a mental battle and it's like them fist fighting, but it's like in their minds. Like, I think that'd be kind of cool, to be honest. But yeah, no, I think Arya could like assassinate him. Like, that's her mission through the whole battle, is to like, hide in the tree and then pounce down and be like, ha, gotcha. So we'll see.
What about you, Sandy? Any changes to any of your theories?
No, I honestly do believe that we're going to see more people sacrifice themselves to save other people than I did before. I think that I've seen this episode and the closeness that everybody has with one another or with other people that they've recently reconnected with. I think that there's a really good possibility that we could see more sacrificial savings to save somebody else from something. But yeah, I mean, it'll be yeah, everything that everybody else said about the Bran, waiting for who knows, and Cody mentioned the whole plan, which now is completely moot because we know what happens in Game of Thrones when plans get talked about out loud. I'll be interested to see on just who stays behind and who is going out to fight, because that'll be really interesting too. Do they put anybody in the crypt that can that can fight? I mean, Tyrion, okay, he's there, but he's small.
You said the crypt. Oh gosh, you said the crypt.
The crypt.
I know. It's but the dark passageway with dead people statues. But I think it'll be very. I think next episode is gonna be a really good pivotal episode. I'm very, very excited. So yeah,
100%. I don't think that there's any question that this next episode's just gonna rock everyone's foundations. Cody, what about you? I know that Theon's dead in your eyes from 5 seasons ago.
He was dead 5 seasons ago. You're 100% correct. But is he going to die this season? I hope he's beheaded. On a different one, I think Brienne or Jaime are gone after this episode. They have they have both reached the peak of who they are. Do I want them gone? Absolutely not. That would just be
No.
ridiculous to say, but it's what's happening. Because either Jamie lays down his life for Brienne, or vice versa. One of the two is happening, or they both go. The preview that showed after the thing, she's on the front lines. She's in the front, and she's like screaming as they're coming in. So I understand she's a badass, but she ain't that badass in my eyes. It's going to be a very uphill battle to be able to survive that. So I think one of them are going. Night King, I still want the Hound. Because I want the Hound to just say fuck the Night King and just move on. I think that would be the icing on the cake if that was to happen.
Does the Night King have any chickens?
Do you have any chickens? I think it could be interesting if somebody you think that could sneak up that possibly takes out the Night King and the Night King obliterates them. Like, thinks it's close and like, no, it's not as easy as we think it is. And it could spill into the next episode, which I don't think it will. I'm kind of thinking it's 3-3, but who knows? Because that episode is going to be the most costly thing ever. It has to be. Oh, did Ghost show up?
Yeah.
So you didn't even.
He's in like
don't
the first
have to
couple
die.
minutes. He's in the first couple.
I don't
minutes.
have to die on the hill. He was there.
You didn't even bring it up, which I'm very upset.
He was
with because
barely there.
We had to live. That's all you need. What else? Did you want him having a talking scene with
Yes.
Tyrion? Okay,
I wanted John to be like, "I missed you, friend," or something.
No, he's like, "You're the dog in the background. Just sit there." Like,
just
yeah,
the
okay.
dog in the
But yeah,
background.
I think it's pretty. I think one of those two are going, and I think it's going to be the Hound because fuck the Night King.
Like I said, does he have any chickens?
Do you have any chickens?
Yeah,
Two
I actually am kind of leaning a little bit towards Arya on the who kills the Night King thing, just because you do see that scene of her running in the inside of the building in that trailer, right?
She's in the crypt.
She looked. I wasn't going to say it. I
people.
wasn't going to say it, but she was in the crypt, and I think maybe it looked like she was anyway. I think maybe she's down there for a purpose, and people are dying because there's dead guys down there, and she is running because she knows that this could lead to Bran being killed before the Night King gets to him. So maybe she goes to help guard him. In my mind, I think that's fair because she's very protective of her family. Do I have any other theories on who could die? I don't. Okay, so after what happened, I think that actually Jamie and Brienne might survive this thing, and that they'll get married, and that they'll have a happy ever after. I kind of like that. It makes my heart happy. But if they get married, that means that the one side of the triangle has to die, and that would mean Tormund, and that makes me very sad. So
I don't even
They
want to
live
talk
together.
about this anymore.
He's cool with it. F tradition. They stay together. All three of them together.
all three, Tormund just sits there talking about Giant's milk, and everyone's happy. No, in my mind, one of that triangle is going to die. And I just think that if they're going to do this relationship with Bran and Jamie, that it's going to be Tormund who dies. But I think one of that triangle dies. I'm just not sure which one. So
I honestly believe that when I said that people were going to sacrifice themselves, I think that it's Tormund who sacrificed himself to save Brienne.
Yeah.
And then her and Jamie will, I don't know.
I kind of think the same thing. Because Tormund, at the end of the day, as much as he does really just... He's got the hots for her. He's also a noble guy. And he makes a lot of jokes and is a little disgusting in the best possible way. But he is a good person. And I think that's how his character is going to go out, being a good person. So that's all we got. It's been a lot of fun. I don't think I'm emotionally prepared for this week in any respect.
No.
So I'm going to spend the next
not even close.
Many days just being in a state of flux of that was nice, and so it's gonna be a great week. I'm really looking forward to the emotional turmoil that this will bring up in my mind. But yeah, so let's figure out where everyone is located online, and if you have any shows you'd like to plug. We'll start with Rob.
Yeah, you can basically find me personally on Twitter and Letterboxd, that RBRTPRKR98. That's my first and last name, no vowels plus year. And you can find me playing all over in the online trivia sphere.
Awesome. What about you, Sandy?
You guys can find me Facebook, Twitter, Letterbox, and Instagram at 1790 or Sandy S Robinson 1799. Let's do that again, S Robinson 1799. And you can find me on Full Metal Trivia, singles, teams, geek, and every movie battleground, and everything else. Yeah, so just find me everywhere. And on Take 3.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're all part of this channel too, right? Cody, what about you, man?
Multiplex, Full Metal, Take 3.
The other one.
If there's something, if you're on this online community, you should see me pop up in a video once or twice
a week,
twice
a week. Yeah, but you can definitely find me here on Take 3 on Take the Throne. Next week is not going to be as much fun as this week because we may be sobbing. So yeah.
I hope we're sobbing. I mean, no, I don't. That's just embarrassing for all of us.
It's gonna be a bad week because I'm gonna go see Endgame on Friday, then freaking Game of Thrones on Sunday, and then again on Monday for Endgame. I'm gonna be balling by the time we have this whole thing. So
yeah, we're gonna have a lot of fun. We may or may not do an Endgame discussion as well, just to make sure we're all as sad as possible. Yeah, so you can find me at Smith_K10, the number, not the word, on Twitter, Instagram, and Stardust, even though I don't post anything on Stardust. Just go subscribe. I get new subscribers like every other day. I don't post anything on Stardust.
Because you're Kristen.
It's literally my biggest subscriber base is on Stardust. So I keep plugging it because, I guess people still watch my old reviews. I don't know. I just go ahead. My almost 1.5 thousand followers on Stardust. I don't do anything else. I don't know.
20 followers on Twitter, and you got 1.5 on something you don't even do.
I don't understand it. It's why I plug it every time, because I don't know. I have no idea. It must just be my natural charm. Jeez. You can also find me hosting this show that you're watching currently, Take the Throne, next week, where we cry and maybe we'll drink to, dump one out for all of our fallen compadres. You can also find me hosting the Take 3 Reactor Summit, which went up today. If you haven't checked it out, it was a great episode between myself, Matt, and Abe. We talked about all the events that happened in Chicago. I yelled at Matt at the very beginning, so don't miss it. It's the best. Don't we all love it when we yell at Matt? No, Matt's great. We love Matt. You can also find us hopefully doing reaction to that Founding Fathers match, Wildberries match, soon, hopefully, next couple days. And I think that's it. I don't think there's anything else. Oh, maybe an Endgame discussion. We'll see. We're busy. We'll find out. So we got a lot of stuff. All right, guys. Prepare yourselves for next week. We hope to see you all back with us. We hope that everyone survives out there. Don't let the White Walkers, kill you. We hope to see you all back. And thanks for watching, guys. We hope you all take care.